Walking out of his own trial yesterday, a man on trial for murder in Longview decided not to attend again today. 41-year-old Brandon Harris is charged for the shooting death of a woman at a Longview apartment complex. KLTV 7's Bob Hallmark has more.
Prosecutors and defense attorneys arrived at the 188th District Court in Longview, where Judge Scott Novy was informed by a bailiff that 41-year-old defendant Brandon Harris had chosen not to appear, choosing to stay in his jail cell instead.
He advised that he did not want to come to court.
Harris, on trial for the 2020 shooting death of 20-year-old Valerie Hackett at the Ware Meadows Apartments, often sat oblivious to proceedings while he was in court. Over the first 2 days, prosecutors interviewed witnesses that placed Harris at the scene and also said they saw him carrying a gun.
Judge Novy ordered an extended recess in the case earlier today so that prosecution would be able to await the arrival of a forensics expert in the case.
Other witnesses were called at the standing objection of the defense to testify on Harris' previous history of violence in 2019 at the same apartment section, again seen carrying a firearm.
Did you get what his intentions were that you heard?
Yes, he argued that he was going to put a gun down, that he was going to kill someone.
Our initial call was for a armed subject call, and then very shortly thereafter, I believe it was changed to a shooting just occurred.
A forensic expert verified that Miss Hackett was shot at least 3 times, the fatal wound being in the back. Bob Hallmark, KLTV 7 News.
Now, the defense in the case argues the state must prove Harris' intent to get a capital murder conviction. Otherwise, they say the charge must be reduced to murder.